Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the CWC Coalition for hosting today's webinar. I also want to take the opportunity to thank Director General Fernando Arias and Ambassador Ahmed Uzumcu for their years of dedicated service to the OPCW and for the support to the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs. The norm against chemical weapons has been subjected to repeated and fundamental challenges, and the re-emergence of these weapons of terror is one of the most alarming developments in international security. Chemical weapons use in the Syrian Arab Republic, Malaysia, Iraq, the United Kingdom, and the Russian Federation have threatened the norms embedded in the Chemical Weapons Convention, or CWC, and profoundly damaged the disarmament and non-proliferation efforts. The United Nations Secretary-General has repeatedly stressed that the use of chemical weapons anywhere by anyone and under any circumstances is unacceptable and has urged the international community to act. Yet, the Security Council has not fulfilled its responsibility to hold accountable the perpetrators of these atrocious acts. It is alarming that more than 1 century after the end of World War I and the adoption of the 1925 Geneva Protocol, and 25 years after the entering into force of the Chemical Weapons Convention in 1997, the use of chemical weapons continues to recur. Progress towards the elimination of chemical weapons requires a united and collective response. And I am proud of the United Nations and the OPCW Technical Secretariat's strong and long-standing partnership working to achieve this goal. The close cooperation between the UN and the OPCW and the mutually reinforcing nature of their work was exemplified by the United Nations investigation into the allegation of the use of chemical weapons in the Syrian Arab Republic, the so-called Salstrom investigation, the OPCW-UN Joint Mission, and the OPCW-UN Joint Investigative Mechanism, or JIM. Further, these collaborations have provided the international community with lessons for international efforts to strengthen the norm against chemical weapons use. Let me briefly touch on each of these. On 21 March 2013, the Salstrom investigation was established by the United Nations Secretary-General following requests by the Syrian Arab Republic and other UN member states to investigate separate allegations of the use of chemical weapons in the Syrian Arab Republic. This investigation was established under the mandate of the UN Secretary-General's mechanism, or UNSGM, for investigation of alleged use of chemical and biological weapons. This was due to the fact that, at the time, the Syrian Arab Republic was not state party to the CWC. The purpose of this specialized and impartial fact-finding mission, led by Professor Åke Sällström of Sweden, was to determine whether or not chemical weapons had been used in the incidents reported. After an agreement was reached with the Syrian government in July 2013, the UN mission began its work in Syria on 19 August 2013. As the team was getting ready for their first investigation, reports about the Ghouta incident emerged, and the Secretary-General included this incident in the mission. In the end, the team investigated 7 of the 16 allegations reported to the Secretary-General. The UN mission operated according to the guidelines and procedures for a UNSGM investigation and it benefited from strong cooperation with the OPCW and the World Health Organization, WHO. The mission submitted its final report in December 2013, noting its conclusion that chemical weapons had been used during the conflict in Syria in 5 of the incidents reported to the Secretary General. In the end, the mission was a success. Not only did it achieve its mandate, but its work also played a crucial role in the accession by Syria to the CWC in September 2013. Following the accession of Syria to the CWC, the OPCW UN Joint Mission was formally established in October 2013. The mandate of the Joint Mission was for an accelerated program to eliminate the Syrian Arab Republic's chemical weapons program by mid-2014, derived from OPCW Executive Council Decision ECM33/Decision 1 and Security Council Resolution 2018. The joint mission was headed by the Special Coordinator, Ms. Sigrid Kaag of the Netherlands. The OPCW UN Joint Mission closed on 30 September 2014, although the OPCW continues to undertake the necessary residual activities required to fully implement Security Council Resolution 2118. In addition, in response to continued allegations of chemical weapons use in Syria, the OPCW Fact-Finding Mission, or FFM, was established in 2014 to ascertain the facts surrounding allegations of the use of toxic chemicals for hostile purposes in the Syrian Arab Republic. The OPCW confirmed the complete destruction of all chemical weapons declared by the Syrian Arab Republic on 4th of January 2016. Pursuant paragraph 12 of Resolution 2118, the OPCW Director General has the obligation to report to the Security Council through the UN Secretary General on the activities related to the implementation of this resolution. Accordingly, my predecessors and I have briefed the Security Council members on a monthly basis since January 2015 on the elimination of Syria's chemical weapons program. Since February 2015, such monthly briefings included updates on the reports submitted by the OPCW FFM. Unfortunately, despite the accession of Syria to the CWC and ongoing efforts to eliminate its CW program, there continue to be reports of use of chemical weapons in Syria, which were investigated by the OPCW FFM. As a result, in 2015, the Security Council adopted Resolution 2235, in which it established the OPCW UN Joint Investigative Mechanism, or JIM. The JIM's mandate was to identify to the greatest extent feasible those responsible for the use of chemicals as weapons in Syria. The JIM succeeded in implementing its mandate to conduct impartial, objective investigations. It assessed that, in 3 cases, the Syrian Arab Republic's armed forces were responsible for the release of chlorine. In 1 case, the Syrian government was responsible for the release of sarin. And in 2 cases, the Islamic State in Iraq and the Levant, ISIL, was responsible for the use of sulfur mustard. In 2017, despite several proposals, the Security Council could not agree upon a further extension of the JIM's mandate. Consequently, the JIM ceased functioning on 17 November 2017. The non-renewal of the mandate of the JIM left a gap in the ability of international organizations to identify those responsible for the use of chemical weapons. Therefore, in June 2018, the fourth special session of the Conference of States Parties to the CWC granted the OPCW Secretariat the authority to conduct such investigations through the establishment of the Investigation and Identification Team, or IIT, as mentioned by Director General Arias. The IIT works to identify the perpetrators of chemical weapons use in Syria in those instances in which the FFM determines that use or likely use occurred, and cases for which the JIM did not issue a report. The IIT's first report was released in April 2020, and it continues its important work to this day. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the use of chemical weapons is a grave violation of international law and an affront to our shared humanity. We need to remain vigilant to ensure that these awful weapons are eliminated, not only in Syria, but everywhere. Following the conclusion of the Salzman investigation and the expiration of the Joint Investigating Mechanism, the Office for Disarmament Affairs conducted lessons learned exercises to identify recommendations that could benefit future such investigations and help to enhance common understanding of what can be done to establish effective and credible investigations into the alleged use of chemical weapons. Although the OPCW would take the lead on most future such investigations, the UN Secretary-General's mechanism remains a tool for investigations related to states not party to the CWC. Further, given that there is no equivalent agency for the Biological Weapons Convention, the UNSGM is currently the only international mechanism for the investigation of alleged use of biological weapons, which will be a similarly grave violation of international law. Let me close by noting that the identification of those responsible for the use of chemical weapons is not the final objective. There is a step beyond that, wherein those who are responsible for the use of chemical weapons are then held accountable. I assure you that the United Nations remains committed to work with partners such as the OPCW and all its member states to restore the taboo against chemical weapons and to ensure that those responsible for their use, having violated such a profound international norm, are held to account. Let us all continue to support efforts to restore the strong norm against chemical weapons use, and in particular, the Chemical Weapons Convention and its essential work to build a safer, more secure world for all. I thank you very much for your attention.